The great throne hall of the alien palace was silent. The walls glowed with strange blue light. Tall pillars rose like crystal trees, casting shadows across the stone floor. Hundreds of alien guards stood in perfect lines, their eyes locked on the single human in the center. Daniel stood frozen, his chest heaving with quick breaths. His hands still tingled from what he had done. He had not meant to. It was instinct. When the sharp crystal beam fell from the ceiling, he leapt forward without thinking. His arm had reached out, steady and strong. And for a brief moment, his skin brushed against the arm of the alien queen. The sound of that touch echoed louder than thunder in the chamber. The guards gasped. The nobles whispered with horror. For their people, the queen was sacred. Untouchable. To touch her was to break the oldest law of their world. A crime that meant certain death. Daniel's mind raced. His heart pounded like war drums. He expected to feel the sharp sting of alien blades pierce his back at any second. He expected to hear the command for his execution. Yet no order came. Instead, the queen herself lifted her hands slowly. Her golden eyes locked on him. She rose from her throne with a grace that made every step feel like a storm gathering. Her voice cut through the hall, low and commanding. "Touch me again, human!" The words sent shivers through the room. The guards stiffened. The nobles gasped louder. A wave of disbelief swept through the court. Never in their history had their queen spoken such words. Daniel's throat went dry. His lips parted, but no sound came out. He had been prepared to die, but he was not prepared for this. He could barely breathe. He looked at her, standing tall, her dark crown glowing faintly under the light. She was beautiful and terrifying at once. Her eyes burned with a strange fire that he could not understand. Why would she say this? Was it a trick? Was it a cruel test before his death? He wanted to step back, but his legs would not move. He felt trapped between fear and awe. Every gaze in the hall pressed against him. The guards shifted uneasily, waiting for her command. The nobles whispered like a storm of voices. Some cried for punishment. Others trembled in silence. The queen raised her hand higher, silencing them all. Her expression was unreadable. Her voice came again, softer now, but still carrying power. "Do not fear. Step closer." Daniel's breath shook in his chest. He took one slow step forward. His boots echoed on the cold stone. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. Closer and closer he moved until he could see the faint silver patterns etched across her skin. They shimmered in the light like living lines. She stood just before him now, her eyes never leaving his. The queen extended her hand. Daniel hesitated. His mind screamed at him to stop. One touch had already condemned him. Another would seal his fate forever. Yet her eyes drew him in. They did not look cruel. They looked curious. Searching. Almost longing. His hand trembled as he lifted it. For a moment, time froze. Then his fingers brushed against hers. The hall erupted in shock. Gasps filled the air. The guards nearly broke formation, their hands twitching toward their weapons. But the queen did not call for blood. She did not flinch. She closed her hand gently over his, her touch warm and alive. Her lips curved, not into anger, but into something that looked like a smile. The chamber grew silent again, heavier than before. Every alien eye stared at the sight before them. Daniel could hardly breathe. His mind screamed at him to pull away, but his body would not obey. He felt her strength in that touch, but also something softer, something that made his chest tighten. The queen leaned forward, her voice a whisper only he could hear. "You saved me." "Why?" Daniel swallowed hard. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Because it was the right thing to do." For a long moment, the queen said nothing. Then she released his hand and turned to face her court. Her golden eyes burned brighter than fire. "This human touched me," she declared. "And yet I live." The nobles fell into chaos. Some shouted. Some trembled. Some lowered their heads in fear. The guards looked to one another, uncertain. The queen lifted her hand once more, silencing them all. Her gaze returned to Daniel. Her lips parted, and she spoke again. This human belongs to me now. Daniel's heart stopped. The chamber shook with the weight of her words. His life had changed forever in a single touch. The throne hall was still shaking with the weight of the queen's last words. This human belongs to me now. The silence that followed was heavier than stone. The nobles stood frozen, their faces pale with shock. Some of them pressed their claws against their robes. Others lowered their heads in disbelief. The guards glanced at each other, uncertain if they should celebrate or draw their blades. Daniel stood in the middle of it all, his body tense, his mind trapped in confusion. He had expected death. Instead, he was claimed. The whispers began. Soft at first, like wind moving across dry leaves. Then louder. They grew into waves of anger, disbelief, and fear. He touched her. He broke the law. He must die. The queen cannot choose him. Their voices swirled through the hall like poison. Yet the queen did not move. She stood tall, her golden eyes fixed on Daniel, as if daring anyone to question her. Daniel's throat felt dry. He did not know what to say. Every word he could think of felt too small for this moment. He was a soldier, not a king. He had no place among these alien rulers. And yet, the queen's gaze held him there. A noble finally stepped forward. His voice was sharp, filled with outrage. My queen, forgive me. This cannot be allowed. The human touched you. He broke the sacred law. He must pay with his life. Others raised their voices in agreement. A chorus of anger filled the chamber. Guards began to move again, their hands gripping the hilts of their weapons. But the queen raised her hand, and once again, silence fell. Her voice rang through the throne hall, cold and strong. None of you will touch him. He saved my life. He stood where no one else dared. He is mine. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Her words struck like fire, but they also carried weight heavier than chains. To belong to her. To stand in her shadow. Was it a gift or was it a curse? The nobles hesitated, their voices reduced to whispers once more. The air was thick with fear and anger. Some bowed quickly, pretending to accept her decision. Others turned their eyes away, hiding the fury that burned inside them. The queen looked over her people and then turned her gaze back to Daniel. Her eyes softened for the first time since he entered the hall. She spoke quietly, yet her words carried across the chamber. You will follow me. She walked down from her throne with grace that silenced even the boldest whispers. Her steps were slow, deliberate, each one echoing like a heartbeat. Daniel's legs felt heavy, but he obeyed. He followed her out of the great hall, his mind spinning with questions he could not ask. Behind them, the whispers grew louder once more. This is madness. She cannot do this. The human will bring ruin. But the queen did not look back. The corridors of the palace were silent compared to the chaos they had left behind. Strange glowing runes lined the walls, casting golden light over the polished stone. The queen's robes flowed like shadows as she moved ahead of him. Daniel's boots echoed in the vast emptiness. Finally, she stopped before a set of tall doors carved from black crystal. She turned to him, her eyes studying his face carefully. You saved me, she said softly. You touched me without fear. Do you understand what that means? Daniel swallowed. He forced himself to answer, though his voice trembled. No. I only acted. I thought you would be crushed. I did what anyone should have done. Her lips curved slightly, but it was not quite a smile. More like a secret hidden behind her eyes. No one among my people would have done what you did. To touch me is death. Even to save me, they would not dare. Yet you did. That makes you different. That makes you dangerous. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He did not want power. He did not want to be dangerous. He only wanted to survive. I am only a soldier, he said. Nothing more. Her golden eyes narrowed, as if measuring the truth of his words. Then she stepped closer, so close that he could feel her presence like heat against his skin. Perhaps. Or perhaps you are something more. The doors opened with a low hum. Inside was her private chamber, lit with soft silver light. She gestured for him to enter. Daniel hesitated, but her gaze left no room for refusal. He stepped inside. The chamber was vast and filled with strange beauty. Crystal walls shimmered with flowing patterns. A pool of glowing water lay at the center, its surface calm and silent. The air smelled of flowers he had never known. The queen entered behind him, and the doors closed. The sound of the outside world vanished. Here, there were no whispers, no guards, no nobles. Only her and him. She moved closer, her voice low. You do not yet understand. By touching me, you have broken a law older than this empire. But instead of punishment, I have chosen you. The court will fight this. They will hate you. They will try to kill you. Daniel felt the weight of her words pressing against his chest. He had stepped into a storm that he could not escape. His heart raced. He wanted to ask why. Why choose him? Why spare him? But before he could speak, she raised her hand again, the same hand he had touched in the hall. Her eyes locked onto his. This is your first test. If you cannot face the hatred of my people, then you will not survive. But if you stand firm, you may yet prove worthy. Daniel felt fear coil inside him, but he also felt something else. A strange pull toward her voice, her eyes, her presence. He nodded slowly. His voice was quiet, but steady. I will stand. The queen's lips curved into the faintest smile. Good. Then your path begins here, human. The chamber fell silent again. But Daniel knew the whispers outside would only grow louder, and his life had just become a game of survival. The chamber glowed with silver light. Strange patterns danced across the walls, shifting like living shadows. Daniel stood still, his breath uneasy, as the alien queen circled around him. Her golden eyes never left his face. He felt like prey caught in the gaze of a predator. Yet at the same time, there was something softer in her stare. Something that pulled him closer instead of driving him away. The queen stopped in front of him. She lifted her hand and brushed her fingers lightly against the chest of his armor. The touch was gentle, but Daniel felt it as though fire had burned through steel. His heart beat faster. No one touches me, she said quietly. Not my generals. Not my priests. Not even my blood. But you did. You broke the oldest law of my empire, and you live still. Do you know why? Daniel swallowed hard. He shook his head. No. I do not. Her lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, not quite anger. Because I let you live. Because I am curious. Because there is something in you that I must see for myself. She stepped back and gestured to the glowing pool in the center of the chamber. The water shimmered with pale light, its surface unnaturally still. Step into the pool, she commanded. Daniel hesitated. The pool looked calm, but it gave him a strange feeling, as if it was watching him. He glanced at her, searching for answers. What is it? He asked. Her voice was calm, but it carried an edge. A test. The pool reveals what lies within. Truth cannot hide there. Step inside, human. Show me what you truly are. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to refuse. But her eyes held him fast. He knew there was no turning back. Slowly, he removed his boots and stepped forward. The water touched his skin, warm at first, then suddenly cold, like ice pressing against his flesh. He gasped as the pool pulled at him, drawing him deeper though the water never rose above his knees. Strange light spread across his body. His chest tightened. His mind felt invaded. Memories flashed before his eyes. His childhood on Earth. The day he left his family to join the military. The battles he fought on distant worlds. The fear he carried, the guilt he buried. Every moment of his life unfolded before him, and the queen saw it all. She watched silently from the edge of the pool, her golden eyes glowing brighter as the visions passed. She saw his sacrifices. his failures, his loneliness, and the fire in him that never died, the part of him that refused to give up no matter the pain. Daniel gritted his teeth as the light cut deeper. His knees buckled, but he refused to fall. His fists clenched. His heart screamed with defiance. The Queen stepped closer. Her voice was low, almost like a whisper in his mind. You fear death, yet you face it. You feel pain, yet you endure it. You are broken, yet you rise. This is what I wanted to see. The pool released him at last. The water went still again, as if nothing had happened. Daniel staggered out, drenched in light, his chest heaving. He dropped to his knees, but he forced himself to look up at her. Her face was calm, but her eyes betrayed something else. Admiration. And something deeper, something she had never shown to anyone. You have passed, she said softly. You are not like the others. You are not afraid of me. You do not bow. You stand. Even when broken, you stand. Daniel forced himself to his feet. His body shook, but his voice was steady. I am not special. I am only human. That is all. The Queen tilted her head. Her gaze lingered on him, and a faint smile touched her lips. Only human. And yet, perhaps that is what makes you special. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then she turned her back and walked toward the crystal doors. The court will move against you, she said. They will not forgive what happened today. To them, you are a threat. To me, you are proof that destiny has not abandoned us. She paused at the door and looked over her shoulder. Stay close to me, human. Your test has only begun. Daniel stood in the silver glow, his chest still burning from the visions of the pool. He knew she spoke the truth. The test was not over. It had only just started. And deep inside, though fear weighed heavy on his heart, another feeling began to grow. A strange pull toward the Queen herself. He did not understand it yet. But he could not deny it. The silver chamber faded behind them as the Queen led Daniel through winding halls. The air was heavy, filled with the scent of burning oils and strange flowers. Her steps were calm, yet Daniel could feel the tension in her movements. She walked with purpose, but also with caution, as though she expected danger around every corner. Daniel followed in silence, his mind still echoing with the visions from the pool. He could not shake the feeling that every shadow was watching him. The whispers of the nobles, the anger in their eyes, the promise of revenge, it all pressed against him like a storm waiting to break. At last, they reached a vast balcony overlooking the alien city. Towers of crystal rose into the night sky, glowing with green and gold light. Rivers of energy pulsed through the streets below, feeding life into the strange, living city. From up here, it looked beautiful, almost peaceful. Yet Daniel knew peace was an illusion. The Queen stood at the edge of the balcony, her golden eyes scanning the horizon. Her voice was low, steady, yet tinged with something rare, uncertainty. They will not forgive what happened today. The nobles see me as their sacred light. They believe I am untouchable. But you touched me, and I allowed it. To them, that is betrayal. Daniel stepped closer, though he kept a respectful distance. And to you? He asked softly. Her eyes turned to him, glowing brighter under the starlight. For a moment, her expression softened. To me, it is truth. You acted without fear. Without calculation. You saved me because you chose to, not because you sought power. That is what they cannot understand. Before Daniel could answer, a shadow shifted on the balcony wall. He turned sharply. A cold prickle ran down his spine. The Queen's hand lifted, and a golden shimmer spread around her like a shield. An arrow of glowing crystal shot out of the darkness, striking the barrier with a sharp crack. The weapon shattered into sparks. Figures leapt from the shadows, cloaked in black armor. Their blades gleamed with the same energy as the arrow. Assassins. Daniel reacted before he could think. He stepped in front of the Queen, his body tense, his fists clenched. The assassins rushed forward, moving with inhuman speed. The Queen raised her hand, striking one with a blast of golden fire, but two more broke through. Daniel caught one by the arm, twisting with raw strength. The blade missed his chest by inches. He drove his elbow into the assassin's face, knocking him back. The second swung low, cutting across Daniel's side. Pain seared through him. He staggered, but his eyes blazed with defiance. With a roar, he tackled the assassin, slamming him into the stone floor. Blood dripped from his wound, yet he did not fall. He grabbed the enemy's weapon and turned it against him. The alien fell silent, his body collapsing at Daniel's feet. The last assassin met the Queen's gaze. Her eyes glowed like fire, and with a single motion of her hand, his body turned to ash. Silence returned. The night air trembled with the scent of smoke and blood. Daniel dropped the weapon, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His side burned, but he stood tall. He turned to face the Queen, expecting anger or judgment. Instead, he saw something he did not expect. She was staring at him, not with the cold eyes of a ruler, but with the eyes of a woman who had just witnessed something rare. Her lips trembled before she spoke. "You bled for me." Daniel pressed his hand against his wound and gave a faint nod. "You told me to stay close. I keep my word." The Queen stepped toward him. For the first time, her hand reached out, not in command but in care. Her fingers brushed against the blood on his side. The warmth of her touch spread through him, soft and unexplainable. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "No one has ever done this for me. No one." Daniel looked at her, his breath unsteady. "Maybe no one dared. But I will." For a long moment, they stood in silence, only the night wind moving between them. The Queen's hand lingered on him, her golden eyes searching his face. Something unspoken passed between them, heavy and fragile. Finally, she pulled back, her expression hardening once more. "This was only the beginning. They will send more. They will not stop until you are gone." Daniel clenched his fists, his voice steady despite the pain. "Then let them come. I will stand." The Queen's gaze softened again, just for a breath. Then she turned toward the glowing city, her robe flowing in the wind. "Stay beside me, human. From this moment on, your life and mine are bound together." Daniel exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of her words. The shadows had struck, but he had survived. And though fear still lived inside him, another feeling grew stronger, a bond with the Queen that no law could break. The palace burned with the scent of smoke. The night sky glowed red as flames spread across the crystal towers. Sirens howled through the city, and the ground trembled with chaos. The attempt on the Queen's life had failed, but the conspirators were not finished. Daniel moved beside her, his body aching from his wound. His uniform was torn, his blood staining the floor, but he did not stop. His eyes scanned the shadows, ready for the next strike. The Queen walked tall, her golden eyes shining like fire. Guards rushed to her side, but she waved them back. Her voice was sharp and strong. "Stay back. He stays with me." The guards hesitated. Some bowed. Some glared at Daniel with silent hatred. But none dared disobey. The Queen led Daniel through the burning halls. The walls shook as explosions echoed in the distance. Every step was filled with danger. Every corner could hide another assassin. At last, they reached the grand hall again. It was chaos. Nobles screamed. Servants ran in terror. Smoke curled toward the ceiling like black rivers. Then the attackers came. A wave of armored assassins stormed through the shattered gates, their blades glowing with deadly light. They rushed forward, their voices crying for blood. Daniel stepped in front of the Queen without hesitation. His fists clenched. His heart thundered. He was only one man, but he refused to move aside. The first assassin lunged. Daniel caught the blade with his bare hand. Pain tore across his palm, but he pulled the weapon free and drove it into the enemy's chest. The alien fell with a cry. Another came from the side. Daniel turned, striking hard, his elbow cracking against the assassin's jaw. He grabbed the weapon and spun, blocking another attack. His body bled, but his spirit did not break. The Queen stood behind him, her hands raised. Golden fire poured from her fingers, striking the enemies who tried to surround them. Her power shook the hall. The walls glowed with light as her voice rang out like thunder. "No one touches him!" The assassins faltered. Some hesitated, fear flashing in their eyes. But others pressed forward, desperate to finish their mission. Daniel fought like a storm. Every movement was fueled by raw determination. He blocked, he struck, he bled. His muscles screamed with pain, but he refused to fall. Each time he looked back, he saw her watching him. Not with anger. Not with fear. But with something deeper. At last, the final assassin fell. His body collapsed on the blood-stained floor. The hall grew silent except for the crackle of fire. Daniel staggered, his legs weak. His side burned with fresh wounds. His vision blurred, but still he stood. He turned to the Queen, his chest heaving. "I kept you safe," he whispered. The Queen's golden eyes softened. She stepped toward him, her robe brushing against the broken stones. She knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she touched his blood-stained armor. "You bled for me," she said softly. "You gave your strength without hesitation." Her fingers pressed against his wounds, glowing faintly with golden light. She tried to heal him, but her hands shook as if she feared to lose him. Daniel winced, but he managed a faint smile. "I told you. I will stay close. I will not let them take you." The Queen lowered her head, her voice trembling in a way no one in her empire had ever heard. "Then hear me, human. From this moment you are bound to me. Not by law. Not by fear. But by my oath." She pressed her hand to his chest, just above his heart. Her golden eyes glistened as she whispered words meant for him alone. "You are mine. Do not leave me." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. His body was weak, his wounds deep, yet her words struck harder than any blade. He felt a bond forming, something beyond power, beyond duty. He placed his hand over hers, his voice steady despite his pain. "I will not leave. I swear it." The Queen's lips parted, and for the first time, a true smile touched her face. A smile not of command, but of trust. Around them, the fires raged. Guards rushed into the hall, shouting orders, pulling nobles to safety. None dared interrupt the moment between their queen and the human who now stood at her side. The Queen rose, her hand still resting on Daniel's chest. She turned to her people, her voice rising above the chaos. "This human has shed his blood for me. He is no outsider. He is my chosen." Gasps echoed through the hall. Some bowed low in silence. Others clenched their fists in fury. The seeds of rebellion grew deeper. But none could deny what they had seen with their own eyes. Daniel swayed, his strength fading, but the Queen caught him before he could fall. She held him close, her arms firm, her eyes blazing with defiance. "Rest," she whispered. "I will not let them take you from me." Daniel closed his eyes. His last thought before darkness took him was not of fear, but of her touch. Daniel opened his eyes slowly. The world around him was soft and glowing. He was lying on a bed made of crystal silk, its surface warm and smooth. His wounds were wrapped with golden fabric that pulsed faintly, as though alive. The pain in his body was still sharp, but it no longer crushed him. He turned his head. The Queen sat beside him. Her golden eyes were fixed on him, filled with something he had never seen before. Not anger. Not command. But fear. Fear of losing him. For a long time, she said nothing. Her hand rested on his arm, her fingers trembling slightly. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than he had ever heard. "You were nearly taken from me." Daniel's lips were dry, but he forced himself to speak. "I told you. I would stand by you. I do not break my word." Her gaze lingered on him, searching his face as though every word mattered. Then she leaned back, her robe flowing like liquid gold. Her voice grew stronger, but the softness remained beneath it. "You do not understand, human. By touching me, you crossed into sacred law. That law binds you to me now. You are no longer only a soldier. You are my chosen mate. Daniel froze. The weight of her words struck him like a blow. He sat up slowly, his chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. Mate? I never sought this. I never asked for it. Her golden eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in pain. Do you think I asked for it? Do you think I planned this? She leaned closer, her voice trembling with emotion. But fate has chosen. I cannot ignore what has been written in the fire of your blood and my touch. Daniel turned his face away, struggling to breathe. He thought of Earth. He thought of the life he had left behind. Yet deep inside, he could not deny what he felt. The bond between them was real. Every glance, every touch, every moment since that first forbidden contact had carved it deeper into him. He looked back at her, his voice steady. The nobles will never accept this. They already want me dead. The queen's lips pressed into a firm line. Her eyes burned brighter, filled with fierce defiance. Then let them try. If they rebel against me, they will face the power of their queen. And they will face you, the human who stood in the fire and did not fall. Daniel shook his head, a weak laugh escaping his chest. I am not a king. I am not a ruler. I am just a man. The queen's hand reached for his, her fingers wrapping around his with warmth that melted his doubt. Perhaps that is why you are worthy. You do not crave power. You crave what is right. That is what my people need, though they cannot see it yet. Their eyes locked, and silence stretched between them. Daniel felt the world outside fade. The burning palace, the whispers of rebellion, the weight of laws, all of it vanished in the golden glow of her gaze. For the first time, he saw her not as a queen, but as a woman. A woman who carried the burden of an empire, yet now revealed a fragile truth. She did not want to lose him. He lifted her hand to his chest, pressing it against his heartbeat. Then I will stand with you. Whatever comes, I will not turn away. Her lips curved, not in command, but in relief. Her voice was almost a whisper. Then you are mine, as I am yours. A knock thundered against the crystal doors. The spell of their moment broke. A guard's voice called from outside, urgent and sharp. My queen, the nobles demand counsel. They say your decision has broken the balance. They speak of rebellion. The queen's eyes hardened. She rose from her seat, her robe flowing with power once more. She turned to Daniel, her hand lingering on his shoulder. Rest if you must. But know this. From this moment you are no longer hidden. The world will see you by my side. Daniel's heart pounded. He knew what that meant. He was not just a soldier anymore. He was a symbol. A target. A man bound to a queen by law, by blood, and by something deeper that neither of them could deny. The queen strode to the doors. Before leaving, she turned one last time, her golden eyes fierce. They will come for us. They will test us. But I will not give you up. Stay strong, human. Stay with me. Daniel watched her go, the weight of destiny pressing harder on his chest. Fear still lived in him, but so did resolve. The bond between them was more than law. It was something born of choice, sacrifice, and fire. And he knew, deep inside, that he would never walk away. The throne room was filled with tension. Every noble stood in rigid lines, their jeweled robes shimmering under the glow of crystal fire. The air was heavy with anger. Whispers turned into sharp voices, and sharp voices rose into open defiance. Daniel stood at the queen's side. His wounds still ached, but he held his ground. He could feel hundreds of alien eyes fixed on him. Hatred, fear, disbelief, every gaze weighed down on his shoulders. The queen entered with steady grace, her robe flowing like golden fire. She walked to the throne and turned to face her people. Her voice carried across the chamber, strong and unshaken. You called for counsel. Speak your words before me. A noble stepped forward. His voice trembled with fury. My queen, your actions shame the throne. You allowed this human to touch you. You call him your chosen. This breaks our sacred law. We cannot follow you if you break the very foundation of our empire. Others joined, shouting, their voices clashing like thunder. "He is a danger! He must die! Remove him, or we will rise against you!" The chamber shook with the weight of rebellion. Guards looked to one another, uncertain where their loyalty should lie. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had known this moment would come, but standing here, with the fire of an empire against him, he felt the true weight of it. He wanted to step forward, to speak, but the queen lifted her hand. Silence fell. Her golden eyes burned as she looked over her nobles. Her voice rang clear. "You speak of law. You speak of tradition. Yet none of you moved when death came for me. None of you dared to touch me. None of you dared to defy the law to save your queen. But he did. A human. An outsider. He bled for me while you hid behind words. Tell me, who is more worthy? The one who saves or the ones who stand in silence?" Her words struck the court like a blade. Some nobles lowered their heads in shame. Others seethed with rage. Daniel's breath caught in his chest. He had not expected her to defend him so fiercely. He had not expected her voice to rise with such fire in his name. The queen turned to him, her hand reaching out. Her voice softened, but it carried through the hall. "This human touched me, and I live. He fought for me, and I breathe. He is mine by law, by blood, and by choice. If you reject him, you reject me." The nobles erupted again. Some shouted in outrage. Others bowed in surrender. The chamber split in two, loyalty and rebellion clashing like fire and ice. Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady though his heart pounded. "I never sought your throne. I never wanted your crown. I only did what was right. But I will not run. If standing with you means facing them all, then I will stand." The queen's golden eyes softened. For a brief moment, the fire in her gaze turned to something gentler. She whispered, though the hall still heard. "You touched me once and changed my fate. Now stay. Rule with me." Gasps swept through the court. Some nobles fell to their knees, their foreheads pressed to the floor. Others backed away, fury twisting their faces. The choice was made. The queen had bound herself to the human before the eyes of her empire. Daniel felt the weight of destiny pressing down on him. He had been a soldier, nothing more. Now he stood at the center of a storm that would shape two worlds. Fear still burned in his chest, but so did something stronger. Resolve. And the warmth of her hand in his gave him strength no blade could break. The queen raised her hand, silencing the last voices of rebellion. Her voice was final, unshakable. "From this day, the human is my chosen. Any who stand against him, stand against me. And I do not forgive rebellion." The hall fell quiet. The empire had been changed in a single night. The queen turned to Daniel, her golden eyes meeting his. Her words were soft, for him alone. "You are no longer a soldier. You are part of me now." Daniel breathed deeply, his heart steady. "Then let them come. I will stand with you." The queen smiled, not as a ruler, but as a woman. Together they faced the court, bound by fire, blood, and choice. The forbidden touch that began in fear had become the bond that would change the fate of two worlds.